back to the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. For those new to the show, my name is Irina Zuckerman. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Washington Outsider. With us today is Adelle Nazarian. She is the CEO of the American Blockchain PAC. Adelle, welcome to the show. Before attaining this position, you were a journalist. You've always been active in human rights, women's rights issues. It's March, at the beginning of Women's Month, celebrating accomplished women in various areas. It's great to have you here. As we enter the show, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about your background, how you got involved in this area, and then we'll discuss more about the PAC and the important work that it is doing. So what made you, a human rights activist and a journalist, transition into this cryptocurrency and blockchain business?
Thank you so much, Irina. It's such an honor to be here with you. And thank you for highlighting my longtime work as a human rights advocate and the work I've done as a journalist previously. It's such a pleasure also to be here on the first day of Women's History Month. And part of the reason why I've always been looking for ways to help advance the human position throughout the world. And being so blessed to have been born in a country, the United States of America, that provides such opportunity and prosperity. There, with, of course, a lot of issues here in our own country with people who haven't had access traditionally and who are, God willing, starting to have access through what I'm about to discuss. I was always seeking ways to help level set the playing field. And over the course of the past few years, I found that while journalism was a really admirable way of getting the truth out there, although many may argue, depending on where the news is coming from, whether it's actually truthful, and a lot of propaganda out there, of course, a lot of bought and paid for influence. But I felt that the advent of digital assets, cryptocurrency, and of course, the first creation of the blockchain provided a decentralized form that gave an independent, decentralized way of people to access wealth in a way that has never been done before. And I saw that as level setting the playing field, as crypto and blockchain, specifically Bitcoin, it cuts through all race, gender, religion, creed, and allows for people to really proceed with one universal, united front, that is to seek a better way of life. It provides that opportunity. And I was looking for a way to get more involved and to take all my experience in the past and to put it towards a really fulfilling endeavor. And so honored for the past few months to have been named and take on the role as the CEO of the American Blockchain Political Action Committee. And what we're trying to do is we are leading efforts to protect the crypto digital assets blockchain ecosystem here in America, and to get crypto and blockchain friendly candidates, incumbents, frankly, and federal candidates who are elected to office. And the only way to actually push forward pro-crypto legislation is by getting people elected who will end up being in, for example, the subcommittee. The FinTech subcommittee is where most of the pro-crypto bills are first introduced. And then there's a whole process that has to be passed by a certain number of individuals, majority. And then after that, it goes to the House Financial Services Committee. And then only after it's passed there, it ends up going to the House floor for a vote. Oftentimes, because there aren't enough representatives who are very pro-crypto in these subcommittees, for example, it doesn't even see the light of day. And that's where we come in. That's part of our efforts. And the other part of it is it's multifaceted, but it's also helping educate and inform people, just the general public, and also members of Congress and their offices about what this ecosystem is. A lot of curiosity about it, and we're just so pleased to be helping inform and to get this more mainstreamed.
That sounds really exciting. And is it seen largely as a bipartisan issue, or is there any particular lean towards what candidates and what existing officials tend to embrace it more?
That's a great question, and thank you for that. This is very easily should be a bipartisan issue. For us, it doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat, a Republican, a independent, libertarian. The most important thing is to be supportive of of crypto and blockchain. And frankly, what I've noticed is that there are certain members, certain incumbents that are very against the crypto sphere, and there are those who are highly supportive. And I have been just by just the natural order of things noticing that there has been a tendency of this to be more thoroughly embraced by the Republican side. That doesn't mean it won't change, but that's just what I've noticed. And a lot of the questions regarding regulation, I think regulation is important in that and I'm sure we can talk about this further. There's a lot of individuals out there who unfortunately will take something that's good and meant to help people and take advantage of it and try to defraud people and take advantage of them. And part of why regulation within the government is important, of course, within reason, stable regulation, is to help offset that a bit.
What kind of scams should future investors, traders, and interested parties be on the lookout for from what you experience?
So thank you for that. Also, excellent question. One example is if you ever have, there's a lot of bots out there. They're claiming to be, for example, Elon Musk with Dogecoin, with Vitalik, with Ethereum, and they'll follow you online, for example, or they'll say they're let's say Michael Saylor type and with Bitcoin, and they'll offer you to give one of your coins, and they'll give you an address. Give one of your coins to us, and we'll return your investment with two of that coin. It's not how it works. If someone's asking you to give your coins to them, then it's like to give you double the amount of coins in return. You got to start thinking, well, where is the profitability for that person if they're actually going to be at a net loss according to that model? So things like that are what to look out for. And people who will ask you for never, ever, ever give away your key, your number. Your key is your code that you have that's unique to you and your wallet. And that should be guarded in a very safe place. I would actually advise against keeping it even in your phone. I would write down a piece of paper or keep it somewhere where you know it's going to be accessible and only you or someone that you trust, family, that your significant other has access to, and never give it away to anyone else, especially not online.
Well, it sounds like the innovative con artist managed to develop a form of the Nigerian prince scam for Bitcoin, which is funny enough. More seriously, though, you mentioned the issue of keys and wallets, and there's been a lot of concern about the issue of wallets and privacy in light of the developments in Canada, in light of the attempt of the government in Canada to gain access to these issue to the wallets, and by harassing wallet companies. There's a concern that this might happen in the United States at some point in time. Can you comment about that?
Well, look, Canada is part of North America, and they are definitely an ally. And I think that what was happening with caravans was truly a demonstration of what was an overreach. And people should not look, when you're a democracy, there's free speech, and people are allowed to express themselves. And it's not up to a free, democratic country to determine what that speech looks like, although there is the general consensus of what is right versus wrong. But to go ahead and exercise an executive kind of force like that to confiscate funds from the people, of course, the demonstration of what happened with the caravans was actually frankly, a case study as to why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is the future. It's a way to prevent the extreme government overreach in some cases. And you have issues, I'm not going to compare Canada, obviously, to other countries where there's actually like dictatorships. It's not at all what it is. It's democracy. But there, you brought up Nigeria, right? I will say that in countries like in sub-Saharan Africa and in Africa proper, there's amazing advancements and innovation being done in terms of even Web3 and having individuals who ordinarily wouldn't have access to any kind of currency, any kind of wealth, to have wallets and to be able to build that wealth. And frankly, all you need is a cell phone, a mobile device, and access to the internet. And so it's very, very, it's very reassuring, and I'm excited for everything that's ahead for humanity.
Speaking of international developments, cryptocurrency can play a very constructive role, as we've seen from the example I gave earlier in creating the invitation for this event, which is Ukraine going through an invasion, going through a crisis. A crypto billionaire decided to donate funds to Ukraine for basic needs through cryptocurrency. On the other hand, there are concerns that evildoers, the oligarchs and others who are being sanctioned in Russia for this, taking part for and financing this very invasion, might try to protect the ill-begotten wealth through cryptocurrency transfer. How do you balance these two ways of using cryptocurrency for good and for evil in advocating for it with the lawmakers?
Thank you for that question. Yes, Sam Bankman-Fried, he is an extremely generous individual, a bright, brilliant man, and he's testified, I think twice or three times so far on various committees. And I think he contributed 25 million in crypto to Ukraine. And I think another band, Pussy Riot, also gave, in addition to Coinbase as well. So it's wonderful to see that cryptocurrency also and blockchain. It's still, it's still being introduced as a mainstream concept, which will, I believe, will become a reserve currency. Digital assets. I think that Bitcoin has the potential to become that reserve currency, and I can get into that a little bit more later. But how do you balance it out? Well, the problem is the reason that there were banks created and third parties to transact is because there's a lack of trust, an innate lack of trust between people. And that's why there was the introduction of the third party, the banks. Of course, trust has been eroded, unfortunately, and now there's an opportunity with the peer-to-peer system and model of crypto, and Bitcoin specifically, for example, to reinstill some sort of level of trust. And it can also help to reinstill some level of trust between the government and the people as well. And it's really going to be up to the governments through a public-private partnership, for example, to be able to help the people understand that they're there to actually carry out their duty, which is to protect the people. And I feel like in a situation in Ukraine, for example, with their leader Volodymyr Zelensky, that he seems to be someone who is upright and is really intent on doing the right thing for the people, and he doesn't want to see the people of Ukraine suffer. I was watching footage of this, for example, a mother and a son in a subway station, and they were like, for 2-3 days, all I had was like a bag of chips, and it's like with crypto, they'll be able to at some point transact, and they'll be able to use the currency and the wallet that they have available to them to buy food, to keep them, supplied and energized throughout this unfortunate situation of a really, really unnecessary war. And I also believe that crypto, that's a whole different topic, but crypto has the potential of helping to hopefully temper down and eradicate at some point the world's wars, because everything's about wealth acquisition, right? And war is one of the most expedient ways of gaining wealth, unfortunately. And so if there's a way to provide wealth and there's no need to seek that as an avenue to acquire it anymore, then that could be a win-win for everyone, governments and the people that they were placed to represent and protect and serve.
You hit on a very important point, which is the fundamental issue of trust between the government and the citizens. We are facing, especially in the United States today, a fundamental challenge to that relationship. There's a lot of distrust. There's concern about government overreach. We see a lot of conspiracy theories proliferating, disinformation, manipulation, online scams, and in general, concern about how whether the government can even be trusted with basic regulation of people needs. There's concern about corruption, ideology, all sorts of issues. How do you see cryptocurrency restoring that balance, and what would it take for that to happen?
The beauty of crypto is that it operates in a block and it's transparent and it's genuine, and transparency is what we need more than ever today. And I do have faith that through the better education and information data, that's gold, right? Well, gold is a whole different topic, but yes. And that's how the government will be able to, once they better understand it and it evolves, really utilize it to help reestablish trust among the people. And transparency is going to be a key part of that. So I do think that there are better days ahead. And I think that in countries where corruption is a mainstay and they're not democratic, honestly, and there could be a potential to see them go towards a better way of doing things. And I think the decentralized model is that even though a government can try to, any foreign government, let's say, go ahead and confiscate, or can try to go ahead and, rather, confiscate is not the right word, but stop a cryptocurrency transaction, it's impossible. It's decentralized, and there's no way that you can stop it, and that's the beauty of it.
Interestingly, while this form of innovation is being hotly debated and increasingly adopted by various countries, institutions, last week we had a guest who discussed the issue of cryptocurrency and its advantages for developing countries. In the United States, you see a segment of lawmakers challenging the very concept, and not just in the United States, but in other countries. You may have heard about a group of bipartisan senators who asked the US State Department to investigate El Salvador's adaptation of cryptocurrency as a challenge to the strength of the US dollar. What do you make of this question, of this issue being brought up, especially in light of the ongoing inflation on the United States that has certainly very little to do with El Salvador?
So glad that you talked about this. So I'm going to actually go through a little bit of a run of history. In 2020, there was a kind of a K-shaped recovery, if you may call it that. And, Wall Street had a quote unquote miraculous recovery. And within 6 weeks of the pandemic ending, it was seen as the best year of Wall Street's life. But what people may have not realized is during the 18 months that followed the pandemic, the Federal Reserve printed about 40% of all the dollars that existed, right? And they were, Jerome Powell said that we're not even thinking about raising the interest rates, and forecast over 4 years, 0% interest rate, coupled with the fact that the Fed loosened the reserve restrictions on America's central bank and allowed for them to print infinite money, essentially, with zero reserve ratio. So what happened was the economy became flooded with liquidity, and the stock market recovered immediately, and it was booming. It was a bull market, and people thought that it was good, but actually it was not a good thing. What happened was that was a demonstration of the dollar actually collapsing in value before our very eyes in real time, and against scarce assets. So the value of the currency essentially collapsed within a year, and the US dollar over the past 100 years, century, has really declined about an average of 7 to 10% annually. And that means if you calculate it over 100 years, over the course of 100 years, it's going to lose 90% of its value. And more recently, it's losing about 10 to 15% of its value per year. And that's very scary. So you can look at property, for example, as another way that you want to talk about what's more valuable, what's a better way to invest and to hold the value of your, currency. But you can't, you have property taxes, and, back in the day, or even today, so much property was seized because of the fact that property taxes were not able to be paid. And then you have the question of gold, right? And gold, for example, has also been seized throughout history. You have in Russia and Germany, it was seized. You have Churchill and even President Roosevelt, they seized gold. And gold was really the best idea that humanity had for about 500 years, but it's definitely not perfected. And I think only 2% of increase in gold mining occurs annually. That's really unsustainable. And so if you're holding on to money in gold over 100 years, you're essentially going to lose 80-90% of your value. And another thing is it can't move through space and time. You need to be able to move through space and time because it's sort of money is an energy source. And currency, frankly, is a medium through which energy moves. So you need a technology to be able to transport that. And the reason that Bitcoin specifically is a safe haven asset is, especially during this war, is because it has a digital property to it. And that allows it to be teleported anywhere. It can essentially be broken down into 1,000 pieces and be sent to 1,000 different places. And then it can be reconstructed in that place in a matter of seconds. It can be reconstructed, right? The transaction time is also very, very, it's fast, it's efficient, and it's transparent and it's secure. So for the inflation question, I mean, that's a very, very interesting thing. So it's manufactured, essentially. Inflation is manufactured, and it can be manufactured just by adjusting the market basket of products and services. And essentially, we've had hyperinflation since 1971, but it manifested itself in the form of an asset, right? The reason 1971 is since we've had hyperinflation since then is because that's when America went off the gold standard. And now what it's doing is inflation is manifesting itself more in assets than in goods and services. And so the inflation rate, for example, in let's say Texas or Florida is different than it's going to be in Kansas or Los Angeles. And that's essentially because what inflation is the rate at which a price of anything appreciates in the currency that is in the frame of reference. So it's going to be different for everything depending on what the frame of reference is, and it's dynamically evolving. So it's kind of a fallacy to look at inflation as a indicator of what the situation is going to be, because it varies so deeply and so sharply depending on what lens it's being seen through or calculated through or analyzed through. And it's frankly, Bitcoin has been a constant, right? I just want to point out that Bitcoin I'm going to bring up because it was the first to essentially revolutionize this entire digital assets, the currency system. And I think that now the people are realizing increasingly that because of, quote unquote inflation, as I described it, that the US dollar is depreciating value and all of that crypto is really the only thing that can save America in terms of economically, with our trillions that we have in debt and whatnot. And I just want to point out too that you may have heard of something called Pizza Day, which is celebrated on Bitcoin Pizza Day, which is celebrated on May 22nd. And it occurred in 2010, where a Bitcoin enthusiast offered to pay 10,000 at that time, 10,000 Bitcoin to someone who would be willing to buy them 2 Papa John's pizzas. And at the time, Bitcoin was trading for several pennies, right? Today, Bitcoin, I think it hit 44,000 US dollar for 1 Bitcoin. And the person who ended up getting those 2 Papa John's pizza pies, now what they would be worth is about $800 million, I believe. And so that's a pretty big jump from just 12 years. And so it's the protocol has not changed since it was first incepted Bitcoin until today. And it's that constant that reinforces that it has trust and it's genuine. And that's why it has the potential to really reestablish trust in whatever capacity that it's being sought to do, even if that means between governments and the people that they represent.
So kicking back to the lawmakers who apparently don't see it that way, do you think the issue is just an issue of generational divide? That's why I call the event reference the boomers, as did the El Salvador's president, who called them that, or is the issue more financial lobbies pressuring lawmakers to take up these arguments, even if there's no direct U.S. interest in them?
It's actually a combination of all those things. There are certain interests that do not believe and that in crypto, and they would like to maintain the legacy systems that are old and inundated and are not really equipped to be able to evolve with this this incoming technology and this incoming way of life that's unstoppable. And it's also some, as you said, boomers who some people are just set in their ways, and that's how it's gonna be. They're just not gonna change their minds, and that's okay. But what we're trying to do and what we're doing here at the American Blockchain Political Action Committee, PAC, is we are helping to inform and to provide education to anyone who seeks it. It's not that complicated. And oftentimes what happens is some people will try to destroy what they don't understand. And I think we've improved since about last year, past few months. There was an attempt to destroy crypto. But I think since then, a lot of the banks have come around and they're actually incorporating it and seeing that it's really a savior. And so there will be those again who are just never going to come around the bend. And we are looking again to get candidates, incumbents rather, who are willing to see the upside of it. And for those who are running for office at a federal level who could be placed, look, if there's individuals who are absolutely against it, then they're going to face a primary challenge, and that's just going to happen. So we're intent on getting people into office who are going to really work on behalf of the people and to help advance the American Prosperity Project.
So one of the most well-known incumbents on the forefront of pro-cryptocurrency movement has been Senator Ted Cruz. But aside from him, and he's been quite outspoken about his commitment to this idea, especially recently at CPAC. Who else out of the current crew of senators and members of the House is involved in this effort?
Thank you for asking that. There's a lot. I mean, Senator Loomis, there's Tom Emmer, there's a whole bunch. There's, there's, if you look at the House, if you look at the FinTech subcommittee, which is not officially a subcommittee, but there's about 12 members there. And in the House Financial Services Committee, which is being headed by Chairwoman Maxine Waters, there's a lot of curiosity about this space. And one of the main places where I'd also like to place an emphasis, and Senator Cruz also has been very, very vocal about it, which is great, but there's been a lot of emphasis also on helping with the Congressional Black Caucus, for example. And there's no question that, Black Americans, people of color and Hispanics, people who ordinarily have had a lot actually, of a more difficult time even getting banked, for example, that there is such a tremendous leap in terms of their ability to have some kind of nest egg for their retirement where they didn't have it before because of cryptocurrency. And that's a beautiful form of progress. And that's what I would like to see more of, a continuation of it, to level set the playing field for the first time in our collective history. And it's hard to imagine that, knowing this, anyone could be against it because of the opportunity that it provides for so many individuals in our society. Just to imagine that there are individuals living in our backyard here that don't even have access to running water right now. I mean, the potential there is incredible. And I heard stories of, for example, couples who were actually invested in crypto, and they have taken that and turned those earnings into brick and mortar businesses that create jobs and give back to society and to the country. So there are so many of these stories. And I'd also like to say that a lot of the crypto detractors, in a sense, will attempt to talk about how it's used to obfuscate sanctions, right? Right now in the middle of a war, of course, but so has, gold and diamonds capped on trade, and so has the dollar, right? Forms of fiat currency. And the truth of the reality, and the matter of factly stated, is that that's going to happen regardless of what the form of currency is. And I'd like to reference this Colonial Pipeline case, which took place in May of 2021, where there was an attempt by terrorists to really shut it down. And they were asking for money in order to stop their nefarious act. And the only reason that the US government was able to nab them and to stop them was because they requested their ransom in Bitcoin. Traceable.
Progressive criminals.
Sorry?
Progressive
yeah.
criminals.
So it's that's just one of the cases. And but again, no matter how, as it becomes more incorporated into the US code and into the government and into our financial system, there's still going to be these issues where you're going to have the detractors and people who are going to try to take advantage of it and use it for bad. But we just got to keep pushing and making sure that it's used for good, and handle the people who are not using it for good and according to the law.
Can we expect a congressional blockchain or cryptocurrency caucus? And is that something that's even necessary?
It actually exists right now, and it's been dormant for a little bit, but I do look forward to seeing it reactivated and more active very, very soon. And I think that 2022, in fact, these midterm elections are going to be extremely important. In fact, I'd say arguably 2022 is going to be the most decisive year for the future of cryptocurrency in the United States of America, and as an extension in the world. So we're looking very closely, and we're looking forward to rolling out our list of endorsed candidates after the primary. And there's going to be a lot of hard work ahead, but it's going to be all worth it, because it's going to be on behalf of the American people and our government.
Do you already have in mind, are you keeping an eye on any emerging cryptocurrency superstars in the political field? And if so, are many of them coming from immigrant or minority backgrounds?
Your question. Yeah, there are a few. We're going to hold off on making any endorsements as of yet, but we've been seeing a lot of rising stars in the Republican Party, the Democrat Party, from the independent libertarian parts of our system. And we're just, as you know, redistricting also had a very big impact on the winnability of certain candidates, for example, who may have either done better before redistricting or worse as a result of it. And so all that's been taken into accounting. But we do have our list, and it's thank goodness growing. And again, I just want to emphasize that our first priority, of course, is to ensure that our incumbents, our elected federal officials, are getting the access to information that they need to better understand this ecosystem, digital assets, cryptocurrency, Web3, all of the above. And that's because I'm willing to work with them to have them be the pioneers and the champions for what's ahead. And again, if there's any true detractors who are hell-bent on seeing it destroyed, then they can expect a primary challenge and beyond that in the coming months and years. And so well, it's a little bit late for the primary now. We're not getting involved in the primary, but definitely in the ensuing years ahead.
That's great. I know you have to go soon. Before you leave, I have one more question. What are the substantive pieces of legislation those of us looking to keep up to date should watch out for regarding cryptocurrency, all things blockchain, regulation, anything else? Is there anything big on the horizon? Anything worth battling for, investing our efforts in supporting or opposing?
Thank you for asking that. I would say the most important thing to look out for right now, being the infrastructure bill was passed into an act. It became a law on November 15th of 2021. But President Biden is expected to issue an executive order in the coming days and weeks ahead on cryptocurrency. And I think that that will definitely set the cadence for what sort of legislation we can expect. And once again, I just want to reemphasize that's why it's so critically important to be able to get crypto-friendly members of Congress and incumbents to continue this fight and to be into these critical committees and subcommittees, because that's where these crypto and blockchain laws, rather legislations, are introduced that have the potential to actually become laws and ultimately impact the entire ecosystem in our country. And if they're not even seeing the light of day, then there's really it's not going to move the needle and advance what we're trying to do here. And we see that both Russia and China, for example, a lot of other countries, El Salvador, they're so far ahead of the curve in terms of crypto adoption. And the United States is we're there, we're getting there. But I want to say the United States of America is the hub of innovation in the world, and one of them, of course. But we're the ones who set the cadence for how the rest of the world hopefully will also look at and create sound regulation and policies for cryptocurrency. And I would like to see America continue to be a pioneer for innovation, technological and all of that. And I think that when America prospers, the world prospers. And so I just want to leave it at that.
Well, that was excellent. Thank you so much. I'm certainly will be watch out for your future activities, for the PAC's future activities, any educational events, discussions, heated debates. That's what always draws attention, and of course the candidates that you choose to support and what they have to say about these developments. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of action to watch for in the coming months, domestically, internationally, and in all combinations thereof. And let's hope we can get some of those boomers to move on with the times. Thank you so much. This was Adelle Nazarian, the Washington Outsider Report on the Coalition Radio. We'll be back next week, usual time, 9 p.m. Tuesday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Irina.